Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Southampton Town Board to order on this 25th day of September 2018. Please rise if you're able and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if we could remain standing and join together for a brief moment of silence as we keep in our thoughts and prayers all the men and women in the uniform of our armed services, to keep them safe from harm. Let's pause for a second with them in mind, just to wish them Godspeed and a safe journey home. Okay, please be seated. All right. Sunday, would you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Supervisor Schneiderman.
Present.
Councilwoman Lofstad.
Here.
Councilwoman Scalera.
Here.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Schiavone.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Let me start by making a motion to approve the regular town board minutes of our meeting on September 11th, 2018.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
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 The following communications have been received in the office of the town clerk. We have received public notices from the town of East Hampton, public hearing notice, town of Riverhead, request for comments for draft scope for a DEIS for East Main Street street site plan, Village of Southampton Board of Trustees, public hearing notices, Zoning Board of Appeals adjoining neighbor notification for a location at North Sea Road, Southampton, financial disclosure statement filings from the listed individuals, and letters and emails regarding the following: a Zoning Board of Appeals matter regarding the Hills Golf Course. Land use applications have been received adjoining neighbor notification for the Conservation Board, sites on Wheaton Way Watermill, Hampton Bays Water District Emergency Water Interconnect for Dune Road, and East Shore Drive, North Sea. The Zoning Board of Appeals applications for Paul's Lane, Bridgehampton, and Cold Spring Point Road, Tuckahoe. Bid openings took place for Hot Dog Ocean Facility Rehabilitation, maintenance on trails in Southampton, and that concludes the communications for this meeting's agenda.
All right, thank you, Sandy. All right, we have two public hearings and then public portion. Now, many of you are here to speak in public portion, but our agenda does call for the public hearings first. Madam Clerk, if you'll read the first public hearing notice.
Public hearing number 1 for the proposed recipients of the 2019 Community Development Block Grant Program.
All right, and introducing this, I believe, Diana Weir, our Director of Housing and Community Development.
Good evening, Board, Mr. Supervisor, board members. It's that time of year again where we actually start our process for asking the federal government for community development block grant funds. This year, the notification went out in the newspapers on August 8th, and now we are here today to listen to public comment for those ideas. This year, we have upped our ask from the federal government to $225,000. We discussed that before. I'm very pleased that we brought it up from $90,000 to now $225,000, and hopefully we'll get even more. So I'm always very optimistic. And these activities can be economic development, public service activities, like we have Maureen's Haven or the Riverhead CAP. So service groups usually imply we can do street improvements, handicap accessibility and physical barrier removal, housing rehabilitation, and public facility improvements throughout the town, like we're doing with Ludlam Park or Hampton Bays Good Ground. So that's what we're here for today, and to get public comment. I've already received about 3 or 4 applications, so we're on our way, and thank you, and now we can leave it to the public. Thank you.
Okay. So I do have one card filled out related to CDBG grants, Vincent Taldone.
Good evening, Supervisor, members of the board. My name is Vince Taldone. I'm the co-chair of the Flanders, Riverside, and Northampton Community Association's Economic Development Committee, and I'm here to speak in support of our 3 grant applications, which are new for 2019-2020, and also to answer questions if you have any at this time or any time. We have 3 applications in above that which is already our main priority, which is the Ludlam facility, which would house the Children's Museum and, of course, our beloved Maritime Trail Park. But those are long-term projects where money can't always be spent when it needs to be spent, and I do recall a time when this town received hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in community development money, but it failed to spend. Long before anyone here was serving on the board, it didn't spend, so year after year the money went down and down and down. And now Diana Weir is proudly trying to push that back up by showing the county we have needs and we can spend the money. So I have 3 quick projects of varying costs. One is to complete the paving of Wood Road Trail, which is the road that leads to Iron Point Park. About half of it was paved this past year by the Highway Department. It is a private road, but it was done for ambulance and airlift services for emergencies. And the second portion of that road leading into the park is a dirt road with potholes. It is inaccessible for the handicapped, and we do own a right to access that park across that road. So I have spoken with Kara Back. I don't know the legal ins and outs of how we managed to do this, but I believe it's possible. Alex Greger gave me an estimate, which you now have, for completing the road to the park. I believe that's $82,125. And I assume that would be with his crew or with his subcontractors. I don't know, but the estimate is by our own highway superintendent. The second project is the first of 3 bus shelters that will be needed in the Riverside Flanders area. I have to admit this is my stop, but I have worked on 40 bus shelters on the East End in 17 years. And this just happens to work out to be the one where I live. But as you know, the county is no longer buying our higher-end shelters. They want us to settle for cheaper shelters, especially now that they're moving into Riverside Flanders. So that's my opinion. And we want to continue the uniformed East End bus shelter, known as the Southampton because it was designed by this town some 17 years ago in the engineering department. It does cost more than the others. There are many reasons why it costs more than the others. And we think it's a fine example of what the East End community should be and what we should show to our bus passengers in terms of respect for their work and travel. Lastly is a $16,000 request for the Riverside Southern Gateway, as it's identified in the RAP, which is the intersection of Old Quag Road and Riverly Avenue. That was identified as the point where you're entering the new Riverside, where we should have a welcome to Riverside, town of Southampton, and actually an indicator of which is Riverly and which is Old Quag, which is often a problem, and people turn around and get confused. So it would be welcoming people to the new Riverside as these new buildings go up and the new community rises. Those are all based on solid estimates. I would hope we could bring it in for less when it's bid out. But these are solid estimates. And the reason these 3 projects are in here are not because suddenly there's more money available, but sometimes there is more money that the county can spend, other towns are not spending, and if we don't have a capital project ready to go, I can't spend that money. You can't spend that money. So just in summary, all 3 of these projects can be completed within 60 to 90 days. So if you have a capital budget item and Diana manages to wiggle some more money out of the county, we can spend it and spend it quickly in our town, in a neighborhood that qualifies.
Vince, how much were the bus shelters, the second one?
$38,000 each. Sadly, when the county buys them, it's 80% federally funded and 10% state. But Suffolk County, after buying our shelters and putting them in Southold, East Hampton, and most of Southampton, Riverhead, has now decided that they cost too much. And they don't want to spend that much on shelters, so they have a much cheaper model, which is nice, but I believe graffiti prone, not as secure in terms of hurricane survival, which of course no one goes to the bus shelter in a hurricane, but after a hurricane we need to get out and get the work done People need to get to the shelters, get on the buses, and get out and clean up the East End. So it's a very, very strong unit, and it cost a lot to make it that strong, and also to make it practically graffiti-proof, which is the reason for the Prairie Grill. It's not just a design that's pretty. It was done to make the canvases small, so if you write "I Love Lucy," no one can see it from the school bus. It's very effective. If you give a big glass panel, which the new county cheaper units have, they're just an invitation to graffiti, and we really don't want to see that in our community. We are asking, and I know you have a lot of people here, we're asking the county to consider buying the units for us and letting us pay the difference in the unit, because much of that cost is the platform, is all the other things. No matter what shelter you put in, you're going to spend that money. So let us pay the difference between the cheap model and the East End model, which would be far less than $38,000, and we'd be happy to do that. But right now, they haven't agreed to anything, so I have to ask for the full amount.
Understood.
Any questions from anyone?
What is the price difference between the two?
About $10,000 on the unit alone, because everything else, again, is the same. You're building a concrete platform. There's improvements for handicapped accessibility in some spots. This particular one doesn't need any of those because that was already done by the state when it rebuilt Flanders Road. The other two, which will come in the next couple of years, are in Riverside, where the new developments are going, and I'm sure there will be costs there in terms of curb cuts and turnouts. But we're dealing with one right now, and that's in Flanders. And we want to maintain that look more than anything. It's a point of dignity, because when I arrived here in 2000, there were no shelters on the East End. The only shelter that existed was at the county center. It was covered by graffiti. No one could even see inside of it. No one took care of it, which is why the East End towns resisted shelters. So we had to come up with a shelter that the East End supervisors and mayors could accept. And this one is very easy to remove graffiti from. It's almost vandal-proof. I should never say something like that, but it's very strong units. They survive, they handle well. Nobody uses them as sleeping quarters. They have 3 sides, not 4, but it's better than having no sides and no shelter, which is what the situation was in 2000 on the East End. So now we have something, whether you're on the North Fork or the South Fork traveling, you know a East End bus shelter because it's different from all the others, and there's no advertising. It's a very rural, beautiful look, and we'd like to keep it that way. Certainly in Flanders and Riverside, as we grow, we want to show that we're part of the East End, too.
Okay, thank you, Vince. Any other questions for Mr. Teldon? No. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else who wishes to be heard on this public hearing regarding CDBG grant applications? Diana, is anything else we need to know? Are there other proposals?
Yes, there is a deadline, and we will be accepting applications from the service groups that have not applied yet. Maureen's Haven did apply, which is one of our regular groups, because they're the only ones that provide homeless services out here during the winter. So we will accept applications for another few weeks for those people that were not aware or weren't able to get the notice in
Do
time.
we then need to leave the record open, or can we close
You
the
can
public
close
hearing?
because we will just continue accepting the applications.
submission.
Yeah, for written
And then do
submissions.
we do one bulk resolution with listing them
Yes,
all?
once we review them all, we will do a spreadsheet of all the applications for you to decide, and then we'll be able to decide what groups, how much money is allocated, because we do have ongoing projects, Hampton Bays Parks, one of them is phased, and Ludlam, of course, which is our major consideration, will be phased. We're going to be paying into that quite a bit for the next few years for the buildings.
Will there be another public hearing at that point when we have a list of which projects?
Not
we've
really, it'll
decided to
just be a
fund?
resolution.
Just a resolution,
That you, a public resolution, but that's all that it will be.
So do you need to keep this open for up until a
No.
period of time before the?
If you'd like to, it doesn't hurt. If you feel that you want to do that, we could keep it open
Either
for
way,
the next
fine.
couple of weeks, yeah.
So there's no urgency in your deadline?
No,
submission?
we have enough time to get everything done and the project
Well, I think
description
we can
sheets done
close
and
the
work.
public hearing and leave the record open,
Yep.
That would be great.
all right?
Thank you. Thank you very
How long
much.
do we need to leave the record open for?
A few weeks, couple of weeks, or 3 weeks is fine.
Okay, is there anyone else who wanted to be heard? All right, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and leave the record open for written comments up to 3 weeks?
Yes.
Do we have a
Second.
date, Sunday, on that?
Yes.
What's the date, 3 weeks from
You
now?
wanted 3 weeks from today?
Yes,
Diane?
that would be fine.
I'll figure the date.
Okay, 3 weeks
Yeah,
from
we'll
today. I had a second from Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Board. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you, Diana.
All right, Sunday,
Public hearing number 2 to consider the acquisition of the property located at 20 Shinnecock Road, Hampton Bays, New York, for the purpose of community development.
all right, who'll be introducing this? Kara Back from our town attorney's office?
Yes,
Okay.
good evening. This is a public hearing to consider the acquisition of the property known as the Bel Air Cove Motel, located at 20 Shinnecock Road in Hampton Bays. The town may purchase this property pursuant to Town Law 64, which allows the town to purchase the property for a public purpose. This property has been the subject of many alleged town code violations, which are currently pending in the Southampton Town Justice Court. The property consists of a one-story motel with a two-story manager's dwelling, a pool, and a bulkhead to Penny Pond. The town would be looking to demolish these structures, and they appear here on this map.
Okay, so let me add a little bit to that. So the idea here is a little bit different than traditional acquisitions. This would be really to acquire it for the purposes of redevelopment, private sector redevelopment. So we would be holding it, working with the community to develop a beneficial use for this property that was environmentally better than the current use in terms of addressing the nitrogen or other contaminants coming from this property, as well as from an economic standpoint, reducing the density. Right now it's 22 units and a house to a lower density, and a more viable use for the community, more in line with the tourism economy, resort economy of the Hampton Bays area. So we would not be actually building anything here other than securing the permits for the sanitary system and the development and the design, working with community groups and architects to determine what the right massing, the right look for this property would be. And then once the permits were secured and the grants were secured for the nitrogen removing system, then this would be auctioned off, publicly auctioned off to the highest bidder to develop it exactly as the community had agreed to see it developed. So that's the plan here. The price on it is, I think, $1,060,000, if I recall. And this would be purchased through a CDA. The town recently approved the CDA, though the governor, as my understanding, has not yet signed the CDA. So we may have a little bit of an issue. A condition of the sale would be that it would be delivered to the town as an empty building. So right now, there are some tenants there. The tenants would be relocated, and this would then be transferred. Okay? All right. So I have a number of cards on this. I'm going to take them in the order they were received. Each person has 3 minutes to make their comments known. The clerk will let you know when you're approaching that 3-minute mark, your last 30 seconds. So I'll start with Loretta Werner.
Good evening. My name is Loretta Werner. I know some of you. I've spoken in front of this board many times. Most of the times it was been concerning our animal shelter, but this time it's a little bit different. I am strongly against the acquisition of the Bel Air Cove Motel. I'm going to speak from my heart, and I'm going to tell you the reasons why. I was under the impression that community preservation funds is to exactly what the word says, preserve, was to preserve land, was to preserve historical structures. I was never under the impression that it was made for having the town act as a real estate agent. What basically, I mean, I heard you last night, Jay.
Sure. Just one clarification. So we're not using community
and I
preservation.
had some questions about what are you going to do with the money that you make. Last night you said that you were going to be making money on this deal.
Well,
What will the
let me
money be
clarify
used
that.
for?
So it's possible that when it auctions off, it'll auction off for a higher price because it'll now have the permits in place than the price that we're paying. Any additional, first, the reserves that are being used to purchase it, because it's not a community preservation fund purchase, they would be made whole, The additional money would be used by the CDA to address other blight within the community, for revitalization of the community.
None of this money is community preservation money?
Nothing.
Okay. I didn't realize that. I had read that it was community preservation money.
And not a penny.
Okay. The other thing I'm very concerned about, I'm very familiar with the Bel Air Cove. I've seen it. We from the animal shelter have brought dog food to the tenants. As you know, I was the foundress of Maureen's Haven. So I know that the majority of the population that lives in the Bel Air are very underserved. They're very damaged human beings. And it's very easy to, in quotes, say you're going to relocate them. Where will they be relocated to? I mean, I've been in department, I was a flight attendant for 30 years. I've always done, 20 years. I've always done volunteer work. And for the last part of my career, I've worked specifically with a homeless population. There is no place to send them. I'm speaking from the heart. I think I'm very concerned about it. I really am. I'm really concerned about it. And I also still feel, discounting that, I also feel that the town should not be a real estate agent. I mean, right around the corner, well, not around the corner, it's probably the equivalent of about 3 blocks, there is what used to be called Allen's Acres. All right. That was built, and they stopped first in the 80s. They didn't, nothing. They completely stopped building. Now, for the last 2 years, it looks like to me that none of them have been sold. There's no swimming pool. There's no land development. It's an eyesore. In certain ways, in my eyes, it's as much as an eyesore as the Bel Air Cove is. So, I mean, I just think there's a lot of thinking to do about this, and I'm 100% against it. I know a lot of my friends in Hampton Bays aren't going to be happy that I'm saying this, but I think I have to stand up for the population that has a special place in my heart. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Next is Kathleen Werner?
And I was also under the misconception that it was the community preservation money that was going to be used. I don't know where I got that information. I thought I had heard you say that last night at the meeting, so I apologize.
It would not be CPF.
Yes, and which I am very grateful to hear.
Either, what he's talking about is either coming from, to the general fund reserve, or the, through the CDA.
What's the CDA?
Community Development Agency.
And there are no restrictions to spend that?
That the attorney has to answer.
Yeah. I am also just uncomfortable with the fact that the town is starting to step foot into almost like the real estate business, where we're choosing what buildings to buy, what we consider an eyesore, because I truly do feel sorry for the people that are living in that motel. For one community to decide which people they do not want to live there. The people who are living in this motel are definitely of the lower income range. I know myself, I live on $15,000 a year. It's hard. Luckily, I do have a home. But it's hard to find a place that you can live in, especially the people living in this place. They have animals. Where are they going to go? Is there any place that the town can find for them to go to before you tear this place down? I mean, these are people within our town who live in our community. You know, the condos that are built, I know I couldn't afford to live in. We have senior citizens in this town that, what's going to happen? Years from now, I might be standing here and saying, okay, where am I going to go? I have no place to live. You know, you're tearing down the affordable motels and hotels. I have no place to go. What are you going to do for me? My children, 3 children that grew up in Sag Harbor, they live in Crown Heights. They cannot live in the town of Southampton. Please, before you go around tearing down buildings and thinking about where we're going to put our taxpayers' money to build condos so more city people can move out, because I couldn't afford to buy one of the condos you're building over there, think what we're going to do with our town money.
Okay, can I say that this was not built as an apartment? This was built as a summer resort. There's no legal kitchens except for maybe 1 or 2.
We're
So
still going to
it's-
be inviting tourists, though. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
let's think about who we're going to be getting rid of and where they're going to go before we.
And Jay, also, the property is for sale. It's going to be sold either to the town or somebody else. So that is,
Right.
it's not going to remain as is, unfortunately.
Okay, so let's, let me go to the third card here. Anthony help me out, Sensoprano? Sensoprano?
Sensoprano.
All right. Sensoprano.
I'm Anthony Sensoprano. You've seen me before. Thank you, Your Honor. And Board, I strongly oppose that the taxpayer money be used for this for several reasons. Number one, this is private business, and they should sell this motel on their own with the town's blessing and a guarantee of permits instead of the town buying it. And back them in that way, let the market bring what it may. Maybe they'll get more money, but they should be responsible for selling it. I think this amounts to a reward for bad behavior. So they have all these violations, and they've run this place into the ground, and now you're going to bail them out and put condos there. I don't think it makes sense. I think they should be responsible. The owners also own another motel. It's run very nicely, so it's not that they don't know how to run a motel. And that one does very well. It's very clean. There's no complaints. So I don't know why this one can't be run the same way. It's the same family. Also, I'm concerned that the owners have also done business with the town, contract work, and I think that should be looked into. And that's basically it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, Janice Sensoprano.
Ooh,
And that's my last husband.
yeah.
So, good evening. Thank you for listening to us. Again, of course, I have to agree with my last husband. Someone, as I was listening, was saying that the property is, and the motel is going to be sold anyway, one way or the other, whether the town of Southampton buys it or not. So I am a business owner myself. I don't understand how the town can step in and buy this business just to get it. I think I understand you want to improve the neighborhood, you want to improve the property, you want to make it better. I've read there's horrible complaints and violations going on there. Nobody should live like that, no matter where they come from. But if I were to ask the town to bail me out of my business, I don't think that they would go for it. And I also own a property that's seriously damaged from Hurricane Sandy. Nobody offered to buy that from me. I would love to get it off my hands if somebody would buy it from me, the town, and turn it into a beautiful condominium property on the water. It would be lovely. But nobody's making that offer. I don't understand how this got to them, how this got circumvented, how this works. And I guess that's really my complaint, is that if you do it for one, you really got to do it for everyone. And I would be number 2 on the list to take advantage of that if I could. Really, seriously.
There were some programs, some state programs after Superstorm.
We know, we went
New York-
through all
New
this-
York Rising, where the state
And
did
still
step in
working with
buy
them and
property.
still-
This idea of like an industrial development agency, it's fairly common when you
Yeah.
have blighted areas. And in this case, this particular Hampton Bays area is eligible for community development funding, grant funding, and
Right.
to work with the community to redevelop a property that is seen as a blighted property is fairly traditional.
Really? It's the first I've ever heard of it.
Yeah.
I've never seen it before.
It's done elsewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gail Lombardi is my next card.
First of all, I agree with, my name is Gail Lombardi, I'm a resident of Hampton Bays, I moved here in '99, but in 2012, I got more involved in what was going on because I saw Main Street basically showing signs of urban blight, as well as code enforcement, code compliance being very lax within the town of Southampton, specifically Hampton Bays. My boyfriend and I call Hampton Bays the Wild Wild West of code compliance. Based on the 50 houses we looked at in 2012, when we downsized, probably 25 at least were not in compliance. He and I have spent 70 years, combined years, in financial reporting, tax, auditing, peeling back the onion of projects just like this. And yesterday, Supervisor Snyderman and Councilwoman Scalera, thank you so much for coming to that CAC meeting. I think you two are dedicated, both of you, dedicated to Hampton Bays, trying to make it better. And I know Supervisor Snyderman, I give you a really hard time, but you came with this picture. And, this was the picture that you came with. And it just says to me, okay, I pulled it off the internet, and here's a beautiful picture. And in business, we call those the kittens, puppies, and babies. Methodologists show us some pictures and go, ooh-ah, ooh-ah. And of course, we'd rather see this than the Bel Air Cove. Sure. But then you start peeling back the onion. And there was a woman, I don't know if she's here tonight, Ms. Hook. She asked you a very, pointed question. What's the market? And another person mentioned about the Ponquag Manor. They're not Ponquag Port, they're not selling. Right, you have these, condos.
They have COs for that property yet.
Notwithstanding, right? They put them on the market. They don't have a lot of offers. And your kind of response was, well, this is different. It's waterfront. It's next to the station. You go to the station, have a couple of drinks, walk back, muddle over to the motel, go across, get your paper in the morning. That might be for some people. I am a city person, so I take pride that I moved out here and try to make Hampton Bays better. And that's not something I would want to do. So it just seems that the peeling back the onion part of this project, I don't see that it's been done. The questions aren't answered. The facts aren't out there. The CDA isn't even formed yet, and the CDA is you all. So there's no checks and balances. There's no checking the checkers. And this is like a primary thing with the IDA. You brought up the IDA. The IDA is usually a separate board where they talk to each other, and there's some checks and balances. Here, it's the same people talking. You're going to meet with the CDA, and they're the same people. So I don't think you've peeled back the onion on this. I don't think you have all the information. I agree with the last husband and the first wife, So again, but thank you, because you did come to the meeting, and you did start that dialogue. I think you need more dialogue. I don't think this is, in a place where you need to make this decision right now. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail.
All right, anyone, that's the last card I have on this, I believe. Let me just double check. Right, is there anyone else who wishes to be heard? Hi, Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine Soka from Sag Harbor and from Pier. And just a couple of comments. The first one, I really want to back up what Lori and Kathy said earlier about, I believe that as purchasers of the property, the town should take responsibility for finding housing for the people in the unit now before anything happens. You should, I don't know if that's already part of the documents, but if it's not, I think it absolutely should be. Because as described, the people are not going to have an easy time finding places to live. So I urge the board to make that as absolutely an active part of that. The second thing is, I'm not related to the first wife and the second husband or whatever, but it is kind of a slippery slope, it seems, with the town actually purchasing this property and then selling it to someone who will make an awful lot of money, potentially on the resale of units there. I'm part of the Next Gen Peer Housing Coalition, and let's face it, we all know that we really desperately need affordable housing here. So is it possible in the transaction of this particular project that the town require the purchaser of the property, after it's been brought up to, the permits have been gotten, to have like a significant percentage of the sale price of the property go towards affordable housing in the town of Southampton, spread out throughout the town? I mean, I'm talking 5, 10, I don't know, a significant chunk of money. Because you say right now it's 1.06 million is what you're
1,060,000.
Okay, so, and you figure you're going to sell it for something around that, or
Well, I think higher than that with the permit.
higher than that?
sure.
Okay, but then the person who's going to
Say
be,
1,500,000, say.
the person who buys it is going to be making significantly greater money than that. And I think that, you know, as part of that, of their ability to purchase something that's basically, you know, a done deal, all they have to do is go in there and build, they don't have to get the permits, they should give something back to the town.
But that would be, because that would be a competitive bidding process. So
No, I-
whatever that number is, it's possible you could, if the town got more than it had put in, that additional funds could be dedicated to the Community Housing Opportunities Fund. I wouldn't object to that rather than addressing the blight. That's a policy decision, but.
Well, both are necessary, but I'm saying something different. I'm saying there should be a covenant on the sale of the town, of the property by the town, so that the future builder that buys it, a percentage of the profit that that person makes goes to an affordable housing fund for the town.
30 seconds.
You see what I'm saying?
What are you saying?
I mean, let's face it, we absolutely need housing, and that housing should be spread throughout the whole town, not just in Hampton Bays. Actually, I'd love the entire project to be affordable housing. I understand that that's not in the cards at this point, but we could make significant money from the purchaser of the property to put into a housing fund, and I would really encourage us to do that. So, and also build over parking lots. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. Anyone else who wishes to be heard? Ben?
Hi, my name is Mary Ann Fritsch. I recently moved to town of Southampton in October, year-round, but I've been summering out here. And actually, the house I used to own is directly up the block from the Bel Air Cove. But one of my problems with just trying to wrap my head around this is if the town buys it, it comes off the tax rolls, I would think. For the extensive period that
Until it's
the town,
resold.
that the town owns it, it's not being taxed. It's not on the tax rolls.
If it's a CDA.
If there's a down,
If it's a CDA, they would have the ability to make pilot payments, but it's payments in lieu of taxes, if that's possible.
Right, the idea that is, like, if it's a CPF property, then it is off the tax rolls, though there may be a payment to the school, a pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes. This model would have the town auction it and have somebody else build it, and the finished product would hit the tax rolls significantly higher than the current tax, assessment of that property.
that I understand, but that could be a year down the road, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. If there's a significant downturn in the market, the taxpayers are stuck with this. That's a possibility. Everybody thinks that the market is,
Only if the town couldn't sell it.
well, exactly. But if the town buys it for $1,060,000, puts in all the money for the architect, the permits, everything, that's significantly more money, just having gone through an architect process. If the market has a downturn, we're at a loss. And I firmly oppose this because of those reasons, and I don't think the town should be act as a speculator. I feel that this is
Understood.
a total speculation project, so
There are some risks involved.
that's absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else who has not spoken? Ma'am?
Hi, my name is Terry Wildrick. I live in Hampton Bays, not far from Bel Air Cove. Maybe my question's been answered in other places, but what about the responsibility of the owner? What about any fines he might owe, the reparation for the damage that he's caused to the environment? My first concern is for the people who live there now. Of course, you've said that they would be relocated, but shouldn't the owner be held responsible, and how is that being done? I've heard you say that the community will be involved in the plan for redeveloping the property. I think that's really important. I don't think that the owner should be allowed to continue operating the way he is, and I think the time limit should be short to get the place cleaned up and get the people into decent housing where they belong.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Marie?
Sorry, I feel this is going to make me rather unpopular, but living close to Bel Air, I think it needs to be cleaned up. It's polluting the water in a dreadful way. Bed bugs, roaches, these are not things I want to live next to. I don't want them on my property. I think the people should be relocated, but I think the town deserves a thank you for making an effort to do this. I would love to see it done with CPF funds and have nothing there, but I understand the need for the money on the tax rolls, so perhaps this is the best solution. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you, Maria.
All right, anyone else? All right, so as the sponsor, I think what I'd like to do is recess this so we can get more public opinion on it and not make a decision tonight. The community, there's a lot of voices in Hampton Bays. It's a community that isn't particularly shy, so I hear a lot, and one of the things I've heard over the last 3 years is concern about this property, and there's been a lot of, the ordinance enforcement has been there on a number of occasions. There's been a lot of concerns about public health and safety issues with the quality of the water in the canal there. And nothing seems to be changing there, in spite of all of our efforts. And this seems like one way. The property was put up for sale. The private sector, a number of people looked at this, but anyone looking to buy it always put conditions on it that, because they never knew what they could do with this property, and so they would walk away or back out of the deal because not knowing what they could do here. So it isn't zoned for a resort use, but it's in a resort use. It's zoned as residential for the most part, which makes it a non-conforming hotel. And investors get nervous buying non-conforming properties. So I think what the town is trying to do here is address a community need and do it sensitively. And we certainly would work with the property owner to help find housing for the people who are there. It wasn't that long ago that the town bought, was it the Hidden Pond Motel?
Hidden Cove.
Yep.
Hidden Cove Motel.
Hidden Cove, yeah.
That was even a larger hotel. There was more units there, I believe. So, so I'd like to come up with another date, and we'll solicit more community input. I believe there are a lot of people who do support this, though, today's audience, primarily the speakers were not supportive. So I'd like to hear from some more voices here. So Sunday, when's our next?
October 9th is the next daytime meeting, and then October 23rd is your next nighttime.
Jim, are there any restrictions from this property owner that we have to move within a certain period?
No, I mean,
Or
you
the
always
deal's
have the
up?
risk, they've signed a contract, but we haven't signed a contract, so they could walk away. So there's no specific time frame for us to sign a contract, but there's always that risk if we don't move, that they'll move on to somebody else. But there's no specific restriction, if that's the question.
I think I'd rather do it at night. It's just more accessible
I agree with you.
to people. So the October 23rd is,
October 23rd, 6 p.m.
all right. So let me make a motion to recess the public hearing to October 23rd at 6 p.m.
Second. I'll let Julie do it. She's co-sponsor.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lobstadt. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so that concludes our public hearings. And we move on to public portion. And this is, I think, most of you are here for public portion. If you wish to be heard in public portion, it helps us if you fill out a card. Then we have your name, which I'll try not to mispronounce too many times. But when I do exhaust these cards, I will ask if there's anyone who has not filled out a card. So each speaker is afforded 3 minutes to make their comments known. we ask you to be as brief as possible and to respect that time constraint so that everybody has a chance to be heard. And I will take them in the order that they were received. Our clerk will tell you when you're at your last 30 seconds. Loretta Werner is our first speaker.
Going to be tired of hearing from me.
You look familiar.
I'm speaking tonight on behalf of myself, but I am on the steering committee of Neighbors in Support of Immigrants, and I'm on the executive committee of the Southampton Town Antivirus Task Force. But I want to clarify, I'm not speaking for them, I'm speaking for myself. But I firmly believe that our town police department should not cooperate with ICE. I mean, if it's a felony offense and it's a severe offense, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the small warrants. I mean, it's just, my neighbors are Latino. And as I said, I've lived here for 45 years, so I've seen the town change. I love it. I mean, my neighbors are my neighbors. I don't want to clarify that. I shouldn't have even clarified they're Latino. They're wonderful human beings. And I don't want to see my neighbors and the people that I know scared of our police department because they're scared that anything that happens, they're going to talk to ICE. It's a problem. It's a big problem. And I'm really concerned about it, and I just want to make my sentiments known. You know, I don't think it's necessary, and I don't think it's warranted, and I don't think it's safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the name, and I'll read who's on deck. And again, apologize for any, sometimes it's hard to read the handwriting. But I would ask that maybe the person who's on deck, just so we can speed this up a little bit, could queue up behind the person speaking. So Douglas Newby, and will be followed by Catherine Levy.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Douglas Newby. I'm a long-term resident of Southampton Town, and I'm also a first-generation American citizen. I think most of the discussion this evening is going to be about the effect on our community of interaction with local law enforcement and cooperation with ICE. And I'm certainly horrified by many of the stories that we're hearing of what's happening. But there is also another area of concern, which is financial rather than moral. Just to remind everyone that the town board has oversight responsibility for the Southampton Police Department. So one of my first questions is whether you're all familiar with the report that was prepared entitled Assumption of Risk Legal Liabilities for Local Governments that Choose to Enforce Federal Immigration Laws, that was issued in March of 2018 by the Southern Poverty Law Center, the National Immigrant Justice Center, the American Immigration Lawyers Associations, and others. The managing attorney of the Southern Poverty Law Center said, entering into arrangements with ICE to enforce immigration law will not protect sheriffs from liability for detaining individuals without probable cause of having committed a crime. The issues here relate to the Constitution, both the Fourth Amendment, due process, and the 10th Amendment, separation of state and federal agencies. My second question is, how much time does the Southampton Police Department spend working with ICE instead of working on other enforcement activities? In the 18 months since the last public testimonies of the town, why have you chosen not to follow the guidance of various groups? And don't worry, I'm not going to read all of these, but the New York State Attorney General, the counsel to the New York State Sheriff's Association, and the offices of the Attorneys General of New York, California, the District of Columbia, Oregon, Rhode Island, and Washington State, and others. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Catherine Levy's next, followed by Aiden McIsaac.
I'm Catherine Levy. I'm a resident of Sag Harbor. I'm also the wife of that formidable immigrant you just heard. The only reason...
First or second, Catherine?
Pardon me?
First or second?
I hope first and last. But he's sometimes intimidating, I have to say. The only reason I can be standing here tonight is that my grandparents and my great-grandparents all immigrated from Russia to escape poverty and oppression. There was no question whether they were documented or undocumented, because for them, as for tens of millions of immigrants of their generations, there were no quotas. But I can assure you, those immigrants were demonized by this society, and they were often accused of criminality. Some of them were associated in the public mind with violent gangs, a phenomenon that is not new in America. For centuries, there have been Irish gangs and Jewish gangs, remember Meyer Lansky, and famously Italian gangs. But the vast majority of the immigrants put down their heads every day and worked incredibly hard to create a better life for themselves and their children. That perpetual American immigrant story is precisely the story of the immigrants living in this community today. But right now in Southampton, ICE, with the cooperation of local law enforcement, is hounding our immigrant brothers and sisters, who increasingly live in terror of their lives and their children's lives being destroyed. I know that some people want you to believe that only violent criminals are being pursued by ICE. But large numbers of nonviolent offenders are being targeted, detained, and deported, ripping families apart, destroying trust and safety in our community, and terrorizing people who only want what my grandparents wanted. And ICE's net keeps widening, and we should all be paying attention to this. From undocumented immigrants to green card holders, and chillingly, even to naturalized citizens, and remarkably, citizens born in this country, thousands of whom, and I'm not making this up, are now being accused of having forged birth certificates. And if that sounds familiar, it ought to. And make no mistake, that net, that insidious net, will keep widening unless we draw the line now. I'm urging the members of this board to assert your civilian authority over our law enforcement officials.
30 seconds.
And do what many communities across this country have already done. Enact legislation to limit local police cooperation with ICE and protect the peaceful and hardworking members of our town. Our immigrant ancestors came here for a better life, and we, their extremely fortunate descendants, have a responsibility to do better.
All right, so Aiden, you're up next, followed by Diane Rolnick.
So, Aiden McIsaac, Sagaponack. I came tonight to listen, really. Had not been here before. And when I came in to check in, I was asked for my driver's license. And I said, well, what if I didn't have a driver's license? He said, well, you could have a passport. I said, well, what if I didn't have a passport? He said, well, you couldn't come in.
No, I shouldn't have.
Which means that no one can be here unless they are documented. And yet this group makes decisions and thinks about and talks about those people who cut the grass, who deal with elderly, who wash dishes, and they can't be part of the democratic process. They can't be here to talk and speak. Now, let me be clear. The man was very nice downstairs. But he said you couldn't come in unless you were documented. No, I'm telling you that.
No,
well, you can check on it, but you can't get.
We will.
No one could be here unless they have identification, and just to end.
That is just not the policy. If the person did that, they need to be re-instructed.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Because I've got to say, my father came into this country because there was a quota. He managed to come into this country. He only came into this country illegally because he couldn't meet the quota. And he was a white guy who spoke English. This country has such a racist tradition. And I know that all of you understand that. And we need to do everything we can to welcome the people who work among us, who live among us.
Yeah, no one is to be turned away from town hall.
Okay.
Everybody has the
Thank you
right
very
to
much.
approach their officials. All right, Diane Rolnick, followed by, I may mispronounce this one, but Patricia Zagwi?
Actually, Jay, I signed up before them. I think I think it's out of order. It's kind of important that I'm going to be able to speak.
Or there's 5 is Diane, 6, 7, 8. Let me see where you are.
Because that might give some clarity to some things that are being said, and I just think I help you out, that's all, but whatever you want.
Let me see if I can find your card, Minerva.
Well, you know her name, you can just call her.
No, oh, Minerva, get to the end.
I don't have a card.
Maybe she filled out the wrong color card. Do you remember what color it was?
All right, so.
Okay, anybody have Minerva's card?
All right.
Diane.
Diane will be followed by Patricia Zagwi, do you know who you are? Yeah, okay, thanks.
Good evening, I'm Diane Rolnick, I live in Watermill, and it's good to be here again. Not good to be speaking on the subject I'm speaking on, which is the lack of a progressive attitude regarding immigrants by so many people, so many neighbors, doing a good deal of canvassing right now, and I have never seen so much fear. Fear of the opposite, fear of our neighbors, and it's truly expressed, and it's expressed in vibrant tones. And it makes me fearful as I'm canvassing. And I think fear is palpable. And I think that when someone like John Bouvier comes to an immigration forum that is held at our community college, and in effect is speaking up against hatred, because there was a forum recently that was anti-immigrant that was held at that institution, and it said it was pro-immigration. It started out with talking about gangs and about ICE and everything that is anti-immigrant. When I went to speak with a group at the sheriff's office, many at that table talked about, well, we were for a certain kind of warrants, but now we're for administrative warrants. We have to be. Administrative warrants are deadly. They are harmful to our community. There is nothing but fear. And fear is, again, the word that I speak about, because it's real. The gentleman before me talked about IDs. Well, when you come into town hall, if you need to show your ID, you know ahead of time not to come to town hall. And so I know people who didn't come tonight, whether they had one or not, because they were afraid ICE would be here. And ICE is in our neighborhood. I'm reminded, and then I'll kind of wind up at two points. I was part of one of those citizens advisory groups, police programs, educational programs, and I did a ride along with the police on 2 occasions, and it was an honor to listen to them and to be part of that program. And both police officers said, we'd like to see the community more open to immigrants, because then we would be able to speak to them and they would understand our policies and procedures and be more compliant. I guess that's what they were really saying. And to close in the 30 seconds, I want to thank the leaders in our community who are taking a real stance, whether it's neighbors in support of immigrants or PEER or certainly OLA. And I ask that the town recognize them and the good ideas that they have. I'm sure you're doing that, but I would like it to be more out there, present. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
All right. Minerva, did we figure out what happened to your card?
He said he gave it in.
All right. As a I guess the privilege of the chair, I'll invite you to speak next, or do you want to wait till after the woman I called? Okay.
Letting me go first. Thank you so much, Jay. I
Okay.
appreciate that. Okay. Hello, my name is Minerva Perez. I am the Executive Director of OLA of Eastern Long Island. I'm also a resident of Southampton Town. We were here about a year and a half ago. We came because we were deeply worried about the possibility that many peaceful members of our community would be hurt by the direction ICE was going, and we were right. They are being terrorized. You offered at that meeting that you would not enter into a 287G agreement, which is an arrangement that allows local law enforcement to act as ICE agents. That was a low point in our country when an Arizona sheriff allowed local police to ask for papers of anyone they felt was in violation of immigration law. We need more than simply not doing the worst. We need an active pursuit of the best. You are governing during a crisis of conscience that rivals that of 1938. These times demand leadership, clarity, accountability, and the political will to codify in legislation the deep love that I know that you all have for this community. We see unmet life and death medical needs related to transportation, mental health needs, the crumbling of families, the separation of families, spiking drug use, rising teen depression. We need legislation that explicitly states how this town will protect peaceful members of our community now, not as an empty and toothless proclamation, but as a means to lawfully protect peaceful members of our community. Our full-time human rights lawyer, Andrew Strong, is working on legislation that we will propose by the end of this week. Because of our ongoing dialogues with law enforcement, we are fully sensitive to the fact that one size doesn't fit all. We are taking deliberate time to offer what will support the men and women of our police force, as well as our residents. A positive example of this, soon as law enforcement will have access to immediate and mobile live language interpretation for all stops as needed. This wouldn't have happened without dialogue and trust. We thank the Chief for that and Jay, and look forward to this final draft of policy related to use and training. On a broader level, the town must step up to its position of leader and direct supervisor of our police chief to offer its guidance related to any and all ICE interaction, including shared communication, use of town resources, acceptance of funds, directly or indirectly, and other practices that could lead to further detention and separation of nonviolent members of our community. We need liability to start with the town. It is neither fair nor correct to put this all on the chief. A chain of command is important in law enforcement, and it's important in town governance. I have lived in many towns, from Brooklyn to LA to Alaska, and finally finding my home and community here in this beautiful place
30 seconds.
has given me the strength to do all I can to protect it, to lead with love and with respect. I know how much you all care and how much the chief cares, but we are facing times that require a level of diligence like none other. It is not politics anymore. It is people. Let's do this together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Sandra, you're going to translate? Okay, so Patricia Zagwi, followed by Minerva Perez. I got the card now. Sorry, and then Angie Castillo.
Hola, soy Patricia. Vivo en East Hampton.
Hello, I'm Patricia. I live in East Hampton.
¿Por qué es importante tener una ley para proteger nuestras comunidades?
Why is it important to have a law to protect our communities?
Es importante para todas las familias porque todos pueden reportar crímenes de personas que no tienen nada que perder.
It's important for all families because everyone can report crimes by people who have nothing to lose.
Y ellos están libres y nadie los arresta.
And they go free and nobody arrests them.
Mientras que si apresan a los inmigrantes de todas las comunidades, todos tienen miedo y ya no hay esa confianza para denunciar toda clase de abusos.
While immigrants in our communities are jailed, are put in jail, and everyone is afraid, and there's no longer the confidence to denounce all kinds of abuses of crimes.
La gente mala y violenta no tiene miedo de nada, y la gente buena tiene mucho miedo.
Bad, violent people are afraid of nothing, but good people are very afraid right now.
Pienso que ahora es buen tiempo para hacer y tener leyes para proteger a las comunidades enteras.
I think that right now is a good time to have and to make laws to protect our communities.
Quizá nadie no lo ve, pero al no proteger a las personas buenas, pienso que todos pierden.
Maybe you can't see it, but if you don't protect good people, everybody loses.
Gracias a las personas de las comunidades, todos ganan y cada pueblo crece.
Thanks to community members, everyone wins, and the town grows.
Están más saludables y todos nos apoyamos entre sí.
The communities are healthier, and we all support each other.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Angie Castillo, followed by Mike Anthony.
This is your daughter, correct? Yeah.
Whenever
You can lower that.
just can you move the
Bring that down a little bit.
Hello, my name is Angie. I'm in 5th grade and I go to John Marshall Elementary School, but I have friends in Southampton. I think it's important to protect peaceful people of our communities because some people are afraid to report crimes when they shouldn't be, but the bad people are just fine because they know the people will not report because they're too scared, and they'll continue to do bad things. We need to make those scared people feel confident to be able to make our community better. Sometimes the bad people think that since they're American, they could do whatever they want. But what does it really mean to be American? If you're really American, your ancestors would be Native Americans, but most are not. That's all I got.
All right, fix that mic there. So Mike Anthony, followed by Pamela Wittenberg.
Mike Anthony from West Hampton, member of Neighbors in Support of Immigrants. Thank you. Neighbors in Support of Immigrants was formed in 2007, and we spent some time trying to come up with a name for our group. And we all said, aha, when we worked the name Neighbors into the name of our group. And from 2007, when we first founded, until now, you know, I'm convinced every day that it was a good name to choose to identify our group. I'm seeing more and more how there are many neighbors in our community that are Hispanic heritage and other heritages, and it's a very good thing. You know, I'm enjoying being in a community, in a township that seems to be integrating people of different nationalities, ethnic groups, backgrounds. It's a great thing. Minerva was spectacularly eloquent, describing one of the things that's preventing us from being even more neighborly. That's our interaction with ICE. We all saw what happened in the summer when mothers were separated from babies. I watched the news one night, and they were interviewing Stephen Schmidt. He was a campaign manager for Senator McCain. He helped usher through the going out to the Supreme Court for Justice Aliotta and Justice Roberts. He's a Rockwood Republican. They asked him what he thought of children being separated from their mothers, and he said that our president is nativist and a racist. Since that time I saw Stephen Schmidt on TV, there's been many examples of that, not as prominent as having to watch images of small children being separated from their mothers, but still, every day, every other day, once a week, twice a week, I see articles in the paper, I see it on TV. We don't see what's going on beneath the surface of those images. Just an example, the other day I read where children are not partaking of school lunch programs, although those kids are citizens, because one of their parents or both the parents are not citizens. They're afraid that they'll be deported. They don't want to partake of the school lunch program. Not too neighborly. It's not the country I want to live in. I just want to close by reading something from the Southampton Press that was printed in March of 2017. Again, I think it points out how important these neighbors are for our community. Article is entitled, "An Economy Built on Immigration. Workers and their bosses worry about new policies, say there is much misunderstanding." For many business owners on the East End, immigrant workers from Central America and South America have become the indispensable backbone of their workforce. Many firms employ immigrant labor, and some say it's because of their work ethic. Business owners across the East End trade this week said that if newly aggressive federal deportation policies targeting undocumented
30
immigrants
seconds.
overreached, the effect on the local workforce could threaten their business ability to operate and could even drag down the local economy as a whole over time. I hope you know that article is taken seriously. I just want to close by saying thank you to Supervisor Schneiderman and Councilman Bouvier. We've met in your chambers about these issues. I think you have contributed to making this town more neighborly, and I hope you'll continue along that path. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Pamela Wittenberg, followed by Sandra Dunn.
Thank you. Good evening, Supervisor and members of the board. I am a member and president of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the South Fork in Bridgehampton, and I am here to represent my faith organization in supporting the important positions and statements of OLA, and to urge this town to take crucial steps to support our upstanding Latino residents who are being detained and deported for nonviolent crimes. And many of us from my congregation are here. OLA specifically stands for not honoring U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement administrative detainers and/or warrants for nonviolent individuals, not sharing personal information about nonviolent members of this community with ICE officers, allowing all community members to access police services in their native language, and directing all East End police departments to allow unlicensed and nonviolent drivers stopped for a violation a reasonable opportunity to make arrangements for a properly licensed operator to drive the vehicle, regardless of immigration status. We support OLA in these positions. We also support OLA in its call to the East End community to affirm the following principles. As people residing in the U.S., we are proud to live in a nation of immigrants. The Latino residents of this town, immigrant and U.S.-born alike, are valued and beloved members of our local community. We oppose the deportation of nonviolent members of this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Sandra Dunn, followed by Jonathan Haynes.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Dunn. I'm a proud, not shy resident of Hampton Bays, and happy to be here tonight to speak with you, although like Diane, not happy about what I'm speaking about. I'm very concerned about the climate of fear in our community, and for me, it's very reminiscent of the climate of fear that immigrants and many of us were living in the mid-2000s when Steve Levy was our county executive. He was no longer a county executive. Things were calm for a while, and now with the new administration in Washington, this very divisive rhetoric that was going on then, 10, 12 years ago, is going on now times 1,000. So I'm very, very concerned about this climate of fear that we're living, the resurgence of the divisive rhetoric, and it's divisive to the integrity and harmony of our community. What goes along with this divisive rhetoric are also really frightening statistics. So just in the first 10 months of this administration, the presidential administration, from January to October of 2017, 695 Suffolk County residents were taken away by ICE. That's an average of about 70 a month. And, so what's that, 2 to 3 people a day taken away by ICE in Suffolk County. So this is not something happening in just California, just Texas and other places, but this is happening right here at home. And if it's happening in Suffolk County, that means it's also happening here on the East End. Tonight, or now, starting now, this town board, as our elected leaders, you have an opportunity, and I would say an obligation, to protect all members of our community, peaceful members of our community, by enacting legislation that, that prohibits local police department, our local police department, from working hand in hand with ICE. This is not just cooperation with ICE, this is complicity with ICE. We help ICE do their jobs when police get involved in this way. And it's not just police departments, but other county agencies. We ask for legislation that would involve not turning over information to federal ICE agents. Again, there's an opportunity for you all to show real leadership. We cannot wait for Suffolk County to figure this out.
30
It's not going to happen with this sheriff, I don't think, anytime soon, but we have faith in you. People in this room have faith in you and in your leadership on this issue. And finally, I would just like to say that we can't continue to think about this as an immigration or an immigrant problem or something that affects only immigrants. It affects the entire community. This is not an immigrant problem. This is a community issue. And we need to make sure that our mothers, fathers, children, friends of our children do not live in fear in Southampton Town. Thank you very much.
Okay, Jonathan Haynes, followed by Andrew Strong.
I'm John Haynes. I live in Hampton Bays, full-time, long-term. I'm not over those images of kids, even infants, being torn out of the arms of their parents by agents of our government and thrown into cages and lost in some bureaucratic shuffle. This isn't the first horrible thing that's happened in the history of our country. I think almost all of us want to imagine the history of our country as one of increasing freedom and liberty, and the franchise grows and we acquire more rights, more respect for other people. But very bad things happen. That separation of kids from their parents is, in a line of things which now almost nobody would support. The internment of the Japanese during World War II, the Chinese Exclusion Acts, so many things. The analogy that's really been sticking with me is the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850. Because it's so much, in a way, like the issue facing the town now, of what do we do when this issue is no longer something that's just happening at the border, but it's something that each individual community has to face. You remember from 8th grade history what the Fugitive Slave Act was, a Congress of white men, many of them slave owners, many of them doing business with slave owners, passed this law that should a slave escape to the north, they must be returned by local authorities to slavery. And in a process that was, extremely haphazard and corrupt and so on and so forth. So these people who had fled here from desperate conditions through a harrowing journey, they'd gotten someplace which was more or less kind to them, but where they had right to feel safe in some fundamental way. Something happened way over their heads in national politics. They weren't safe anymore. Local officials in those days, if they did not return slaves to slavery, escaped black people to slavery, were due for very heavy personal fines.
30 seconds.
Those people had to be brave. You don't need to be that brave, but we're here to ask you what lots of other communities have done, which is to support legislation like the legislation that Minerva outlined. sitting on the fence may seem comfortable, but when the fence is Trump's wall, we better get off it.
So Andrew Strong, you're next, followed by Ronnie Frage? Okay. Brian Frage? Brian. Okay.
Right. Andrew Strong, I'm General Counsel for OLA for Eastern Long Island. I'm here because the national level of our immigration system is broken. I think you've heard very eloquently tonight the fear that is prevalent throughout the community. What I think is important to keep in mind is there's not a lot that we can do about a lot of the federal stuff that's happening. If ICE comes in and raids in Southampton, we can call Christopher Worth or some other immigration attorney. But what's really exciting about tonight and about your position on the town board is that there are concrete things that we can do. And what we're asking particularly are two things. One, and they involve local law enforcement being essentially co-opted by federal agents to enforce federal civil infractions. The first thing that you can do is not honor administrative warrants. And the second is narrowly conscribe what information flows from local law enforcement to federal ICE officials. Now, those two things are concrete, identifiable, and they would mean so much to this community. The good news is you're doing a lot of them already. This doesn't involve a huge leap for this town. But codifying it, one says to this community, and to particularly to a Latino community that is vulnerable and scared, that we see you and we support you. It also adds clarity to what is otherwise a really confusing area where it's not just citizens, residents, members of the Latino community who are confused. Law enforcement is also having to navigate requests from federal agencies against community policing, and that's difficult. So clearly codifying it would represent a really positive step in this direction. The reason that we've targeted these two things specifically, administrative warrants and information sharing, is that we think they do three things. They rope town law enforcement into doing the federal government's job. They create a significant liability for the town. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen, and they undermine community efforts. We've drafted legislation that we'd like you to review. It's modeled on legislation that's working in similar communities in Westchester County, in New York City.
3 minutes.
I look forward to working with you to move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll try this again. Bryony?
Bryony, yes.
Okay, Bryony Frege, followed by Karen Campbell.
Good evening. I'm here today as a concerned resident of the East End and as a concerned mental health professional who works primarily with Spanish-speaking families in East Hampton and Southampton towns. As a Spanish-speaking clinical social worker out here, I want to emphasize the psychological toll the town's inconsistent policies, unnecessary cooperation with ICE on nonviolent offenses, and increased enforcement on traffic violations leading to jail and deportation is having on the children and families in our community. Families are living in constant fear. I am working with a 6-year-old girl right now whose parents are undocumented, peaceful, contributing members of our community. She was referred to me for counseling because she is waking up every night, 3 to 4 times every night. She leaves her bedroom, she goes to her parents' bedroom and just touches their bodies to make sure that they're still in their beds. And then she goes back to her bed. She doesn't even wake them up. She's just that scared. And her parents have done nothing nothing criminal. They're just here the only way they could. So this is just, I say this because it's really real, and we can all talk about that this is scary for people, but I thought it was important to just share one example of what's really happening. This is actually a picture that she drew. I asked her to draw a picture of something that she's scared of or that she worries about. And I said, oh, well, you guys look really happy. It doesn't look so scary. And she said, no, that's sweat on our faces, and I think it's really hot in Ecuador. And she's never even been there. And this is an American, she was born here. Here you go. So it just, and that's what's happening in a 6-year-old's mind. I have another referral from a 7-year-old who's just crying and hiding in his car every time they pass a police officer in Southampton town. Just anytime he sees the lights, he's just down in the car. These are the kids in our community. So I want to calm these children's fears by assuring them that the town board and the town police have an obligation to protect all town residents regardless of their immigration status, because I think that's the truth, but right now it doesn't seem like I can really say that with confidence. And so I'm here today just begging you to please do better than you're doing. Don't honor ICE administrative warrants for people in custody or encountering law enforcement for nonviolent offenses, and just listen to what Andrew Strong recommended, because
3 minutes.
He knows more than I do. Thank you.
Okay, Karen, you're followed by Emily Weiss.
Hi, I'm Karen Campbell. I'm the rector of Christ Episcopal Church in Sag Harbor, across the street from Southampton. But I came to speak tonight, and it's a second to everything that's been said already. Minerva brought up 1938, and there is a feeling of that on the national level, and you have the ability to act locally to protect people. I would remind you of the Niemöller quote that they came for the Democratic Socialists and I wasn't one, so I didn't do anything, and then they came for and I didn't do anything because I wasn't one of them, and then they came for me, and there was nobody left to stand up. So you have a chance to stand up.
Okay, Emily, you are followed by Sarah Burr.
Hi, my name's Emily Weitz. I live in Sag Harbor, and I also want to just echo everything that, to back what Ola is doing. They are unparalleled in this community. I'm so grateful that there are people who are always out there fighting for all of us. And, a year and a half ago when we came to the board meeting, I might be a perpetual optimist, and I really left that board meeting feeling like, you know what, in our town, it's going to be okay. Like, it was a time of great fear, but under your leadership, I've known you, Jay, since you were the drumming guy at Hayground,
Aren't you still there?
Still a drumming guy.
I know you're a good spirit, and I trust in that. But the 18 months that ensued, I don't know the complex workings of the town, and I'm sure there are things that I haven't really anticipated that you have to deal with. But I believe that you can be great leaders in this country, not waiting until 400 other counties have done what needs to be done, but leading. And so I just beg you to really lead and protect all of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Sarah Burr, followed by Nellie Amaya.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Burr. I'm a registrant. I can't even speak anymore. I'm a resident of Southampton. I'm also a retired immigration judge. I sat for 20 years in Manhattan as an immigration judge, and I've seen a lot. And what I see nowadays is the worst, bar none, of what I've seen in terms of immigration law and immigration enforcement. But basically, what I would like to speak about is in support of OLA's legislation, and in particular against honoring ICE detainers. These detainers are supposed to be supported by probable cause, which is the constitutional requirement for an arrest warrant. They are almost uniformly not supported by probable cause and have been held to be unconstitutional by many federal district courts. I believe that by honoring these warrants, the county and the township are really looking lawsuits in the face. For one thing, because of the present administration's harsh treatment of immigrants, the lawyers who defend immigrants are becoming more and more vehement in defending their clients and bringing lawsuits. So this is certainly an area where attorneys in New York City and across Long Island are looking into these kinds of lawsuits, and I would think that that would be problematic to you. Earlier, there was talk about money and, you know, the town is spending money on this, that, or the other. I don't understand why the town or the county would do the federal government's job for them. These are ICE detainers. State, local police have no role in enforcing the federal government's business. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, Nellie Maya, followed by Catherine Soka. How many more?
Hi, how are you? My name is
Can
Nelly
I
Maya.
just ask the clerk to grant the additional 3 minutes if necessary, just to allow for the translation?
6 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much. I've been here a long time ago, more than 1 year.
Might not need a translation.
I'm gonna need some because I'm gonna speak in Spanish. And I was detained by ICE in 2007. I repeat this same history one time, 2 times, many times. The people forget that, but okay, I need to be stronger. Préstame mi teléfono, por favor. I was documented for 4 years. I'm sorry.
Take your time.
I'm undocumented again. So I decided to go back to my country. I'm not feeling more safe here. I was feeling free for 4 years. I enjoyed my life here. I had 2 babies here, and I pushed harder for to stay here. I pay my taxes. I never have back because my husband is undocumented. So the people who say we don't pay taxes, we pay so much taxes. I don't have $1 back. My little ones are citizens. And when the people is detained by ICE, I tell my community, I understand because they destroyed my life one time. I'm stand up again and I share my history. Some people keep it all the most forgetting my history. But I'm getting like exhausted, go to either to the pharmacy. I don't know who person is the racist person. Who's the next person I wanna say hello? So I decided 2 months ago, I say I'm hopeless. I have to go back to my home. I prepare my little ones. And then we receive a bad news, so we cannot leave this country again for my daughter, for medical issues. So I know the supervisor, a few persons here, and they are very involved in our community. I was here, the only history is the same. It's really hard to understand in that position how we're feeling. It's really hard. The school take away service from the Hispanic community. They don't want to put complaints because they are scary. They send me text message. They thinking I'm gonna help because they say I'm activist, advocate, but in this point, when I receive message, just I say, go to organization, call the lawyer. Up to this point, I cannot help more. And it's really heartbreaking because the people, like they said before, some people commit crimes. They cannot go to the police because they say they're gonna ask for documents. They're gonna put me a ticket if they ask me for my ID. If I don't have my ID, put the report. They put no license. So how they want to keep the town safe if the criminals, the really bad people doing bad things, and some people who really report them, they cannot have any option, just keep it. So I beg you, and I say, I know you really close to all the community. I know they are really human person in this board. So I hope they really protect the families. As I'm saying, I'm decided to leave. Now I have to stay here and fight again. Either I'm enjoying 4 years documented, and now I'm saying again undocumented. And just I asking, please work with the police department, restrain ICE if we saw criminals, inviting the community to report them, and then que tengan como they have protection when they go to report these bad things. So that's I'm so sorry.
Sorry. Thank you.
All right, Catherine, followed by Michael Daly.
Catherine Soka, Sag Harbor, Southampton, and Pier. I mean, I am so moved by what I just heard, and I can't imagine that the board is not. And it just makes me think what our friends and neighbors at risk have to deal with every single day of their life. I mean, here, most of us who live on the East End, who are not a person of color, never have to consider what we do when we get up. We don't get up and think, oh, today I'm a white person, so I have to go here, or I'm a white person, so I can't go to that restaurant, or I'm a white person, so that cop in my rearview mirror is not going to bother me. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm just very emotional after hearing the testimony, and it just breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart, and And I think we all have to realize that as much as laws are essential and they come from, the left side of the brain and the intellect, we have to realize that we must act from our heart. And at this moment of time, there is a moral imperative for the town of Southampton to enact legislation sensible legislation, as Andrew has suggested, to protect the peaceful residents in our community from detention and deportation by ICE for nonviolent offenses. The time has come. There is a failure of leadership at the federal level, also at the county level, and we are living in a creeping police state. But to also look at it from a dollar and cents point of view, I want to just echo what Sarah said, the immigration attorney. We are holding ourselves open for lawsuits if in the actions that with the police department working with ICE in violation of the Fourth Amendment, and we really need to be look at that. The documents that Douglas, who spoke first, showed, I hope he leaves those with you. If you haven't read them, I urge you to read those documents from the ACLU and from the Southern Poverty Law Center. They make a strong case for why the town needs to act to have this legislation. The town board the police department in Southampton Town reports to the town board. Is that correct?
30 seconds.
Is that correct? The police department reports to the town board?
Yes.
Okay, so we need this legislation because the police department needs some clarification. I'm not sure that the chief is in step with the state's attorney general's requirement that our police departments do not cooperate with ICE. Finally, I'll just say, 45% of our school children are Latino. Our community is totally integrated. And every time one student has to stay up at night because she's fearful that her parents are not going to be there in the morning, it affects a dozen families. It affects our entire community. So I urge you to do the right thing and to tell the police department how to do their job and to disentangle from ICE. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Michael Daly, followed by Tim Marin.
Hi, good evening. Michael Daly, I'm a resident of Southampton Township, and I am here tonight as a member of the Southampton Town Anti-Bias Task Force, which I serve on at your pleasure. And there are some other anti-bias task force members here tonight. Would you mind raising your hands, the several of us that are here? Thank you. Thanks for being here. My feeling is that the town board, we understand that Chief Skrinicki is one of the most talented and highly respected law enforcement leaders in the nation. He's highly regarded. He's very, very, very professional. And, personally, I believe he's done a great deal to improve the decorum and the, at least outside professionalism of our police department. And I think he's done a terrific job. That being said, we believe it's important that he follow the instructions that the town board is giving to him in terms of issues of this nature. And we believe that the town board should ensure that the police department has clear policies about things like traffic stops, traffic checkpoints, so that certain community members are not being targeted based on race or ethnicity or assumptions about immigration status. The problem is when people get pulled over for DWB, which used to mean something and now means a multitude of things, that minor traffic infractions without clear instructions on how to handle those can lead to deportation when local police are complicit with ICE. And if that kind of discretion is available to them to make that decision about what to do in this situation, and there are not clear policies, it kind of is up to the heart or the soul or the racism or the compassion or whatever that individual police officer might be feeling. So we believe that it's, and as an advisor to the town, which is what this anti-bias task force does.
30 seconds.
It's our job to advise, our job to keep our eyes peeled and our ears open in the community so that we can listen and hear things and then bring and share them with you in an advisory capacity. We believe strongly that there needs to be clear policies and procedures around all of these issues to the town police department. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right. Change of subjects here, right? Tim Marin is next. Tim will be followed by...
I'll pass them out for you.
Tim is being followed by Gordon Hare.
You have to give them to the clerk. Okay. Yep, and then she stamps them when we get back.
Try to hold your time up. I'm Tim Marin. And I'm Steve Abramson, myself representing the Watermill CAC tonight on an issue that I regret is a distraction from this very important issue that everybody is here for. So excuse us, and we're sorry for that in a way, a big way, because it's the most important issue. We're here to talk again about Rose Hill Park. Want to take it, Jim? Sure. What do you want me to do? We recently formed the Citizens to Reclaim Rose Hill Park Incorporated. We will be using this as the funding device to proceed with legal action. We urge the Southampton Town Board to support a resolution which we hope will be forthcoming shortly to institute an effort to reclaim the Rose Hill property, which we feel is and was always parkland. Yep. This is the park as it originally existed on Rose Hill. It is the largest access boat ramp to Leacox Bay in public hands. And it allowed people to have a U-turn to go in here and use this property and to park their cars.
You got to speak in the mic.
Have their children there.
Steve.
So Steve, we're having
You gotta
trouble
speak into the
recording.
mic.
You want to be recording.
Yeah, sorry.
So we hopefully there are viewers at home, and this does.
The vaudeville team. Unfortunately, actions happen whereby.
Oh, look at this.
Hey, I got.
Richard's glasses. Okay, so 1/3 of this property was given away to a private homeowner to produce a circular driveway on a multi-million-dollar estate for no consideration of substance. There was no public hearing. It should have come to the Watermill Citizens Advisory Committee for an opinion, which might have stopped this action dead before it happened. And we are now unified in our desire to have this effort reversed. We believe that the town board will be able to accomplish this. It was an error because it was not recognized that this was a park property, and we are now going to prove that it was indeed a park property and nullify the deal. Any questions about it from the town board?
No questions at this point.
Okay, so you can get back to the most important business at hand.
I just wanted to say that 2 members of the community came to your aid, and it's greatly appreciated. Thank you, guys.
You may want to stick around because though we haven't put the walk-on resolutions onto the agenda, there is a resolution in the walk-on packet to retain outside counsel related to this property, so.
Thank you. We will stay around for that one for sure, because we came here to urge immediate action on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Gordon Hare, followed by Sister Mary Beth Moore.
Thank you very much. First of all, Supervisor Schneiderman and the other members of the town board, thank you very much for the great job that you're doing for the town. And I think we all owe you tremendous appreciation for what you're doing.
Thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
Now, I'm an immigrant too. I've been in this country for nearly 40 years. And listening to everybody tonight, speaking very eloquently and very movingly, and the one speaker who mentioned that we should all be concerned, whether we're undocumented, immigrants like myself, various other people, there don't seem to be any rules anymore. So what I'd like to say is just a little history of ICE and their mission statement. So since President Trump announced his immigration zero tolerance policy, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency has aggressively pursued the deportation of immigrants, some with only minor civil violations. ICE has strayed from its real purpose, as stated in its mission statement, which is as follows. The mission statement is to protect America from the cross-border crime and illegal immigration that threaten national security and public safety. This mission is executed through enforcement of more than 400 federal statutes, focuses on smart immigration enforcement, preventing terrorism and combating the legal movement of people and goods. That's their mission statement. So based on this mission statement, we should see ICE working in preventing human sex trafficking, illegal trade involving guns, money, and drugs, identifying dangerous persons before they enter the country, and removing criminals guilty of serious infractions. Instead, daily, we hear of innocent, peaceful, and productive people, sometimes with offenses no more serious than decades-old traffic infractions, separated from their families, often with no prospect of reuniting with those family members. This is painful and inhumane. So let's direct our town public safety divisions to areas truly involved in keeping the community safe, peaceful, and prosperous. Thanks very much. Gordon here from Sag Harbor. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Sister Mary Beth, you're followed by Sylvia Baruch.
Good evening, Jay and council members, and many friends in the room. I want to give a shout out to the pilgrim up there, which we see on the cars, and he's a real icon for Southampton. He's the first immigrant. Every time I see him, I think of that, and I feel this tremendous gratitude to the Shinnecock people who let this fellow with his family in, and we want to follow their example. I just love it. The first immigrant is on the cars, and he's right up there, right over Jay's head. I can only
Everything goes over my head.
state my great gratitude and admiration for all whom have spoken before me. I think I'm number 30. And many friends in the room, Sarah, that wonderful immigration judge who's been there, and Minerva, Neighbors in Support of Immigrants, my friend Nellie, who told her heartbreaking story. I've known her for many of these years, and Sandra, and the Anti-Bias Task Force, and others whom I don't know as well. Really universal plea that we be an example in Southampton. I want to focus again, as others have, but it's worth repeating, get rid of those administrative warrants. They're not worthy of us. Grade 6, I learned the Fourth Amendment, freedom from search and seizure. And this is what some of our immigrants are not free from, because the administrative warrants are not cutting our laws, as has been stated by the lawyers and judges here. The judicial warrants are issued with probable cause of a serious violation, done by persons whose job and stated oaths are to uphold the law. That's what you have to have. So that's in your power, as others have stated. The only thing, and we know your goodwill. We know the many times we've dialogued with you and with Chief Skrinecki. The only reason that it wouldn't happen is sheer inertia. I can't think of anything else, because I think there's enough goodwill that could put us over the top there, that would make a real difference locally, as others have said, in mitigating the fears. In Centro Corazon de Maria, where I work in Southampton, we've had 8 families whose father has been deported. The father of the family has been deported since July. That means from one day to the next, a wife has lost her partner. One of the breadwinners of 2, between 16 and 20 children that we know of, go to school the next day. They can't speak to their father. They don't know when they'll see their father again.
30 seconds.
What's the influence on the others in their class, the teachers who have to support the children, the lovely young social worker who spoke of her own dialogues with individual children? Where will those children, that 6-year-old, be in 10 years when she's 16? Or the other 7-year-old when he's 17, or the 10-year-olds who will be 20? Who do we want to be? Where are we going? So this is something we can do now. I beg you to do it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Sylvia, you're followed by Tony Hitchcock. He's here. Haven't seen him.
Hi, my name is Sylvia LaRouche. I live in Hampton Bays, and I am a member of Neighbors in Support of Immigrants. Just as an aside, the gentleman who spoke about the intrusive identification system downstairs, even if that man made a mistake, when you walk in the building, the sign says, "Present your driver's license." That is an invitation not to come in, and I think that's very unfortunate. There are other ways people can I don't agree with the whole system, but there are certainly other ways that people can identify themselves rather than a driver's license, and that is an anti-immigrant license. Speaking to the larger issue of the way that our police department collaborates with ICE, one thing that I find very concerning is that we are pretty much in the dark in terms of how the police cooperates with ICE. I have heard the police chief, who I've met with several times, he started by saying at one point in our discussions that he would use discretion as to when he would cooperate with ICE. And another time I heard him say that he needs to cooperate with ICE because they are both law enforcement agencies and they depend on one another. So I think it would be very helpful for the town board, as you consider what our relationship with ICE should be, to know exactly what policies the police chief follows, how many actual cases there have been, when has he called in ICE, for what reasons, what have been the crimes that have been involved, if any, what the outcome of that has been. And I think that that information, including numbers, thank you, Mary Beth, for the numbers about your own experience, and also Sandra's numbers about the number of people in the county that have been detained, because I have seen nothing and no discussion of what the real impact is in this community. And I think that you and the police chief owe it to the community to let us know who is being impacted, why, how difficult it is on the community, how many children and family members are left behind. All of that should inform your decision about the future. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Tony, good to see you.
you, Jay.
Be followed by Lucius Ware.
My name is Tony Hitchcock. I've lived in the town of Southampton for 52 years. I'm the treasurer of OLA, so that you understand that I come here representing OLA, but I really feel like I'm representing a town that's on the edge of being fractured but doesn't need to be. We have to take the steps to protect the vulnerable, peaceful members of our community that contribute so much to our economy and to the strength of this country, the diversity that is our strength. My grandfather, Francis Sardoni, came here in the very early 1900s, struggled as an Italian immigrant, to get gainful work, and finally gave up and changed his name to Frank Keene so people wouldn't know he was an Italian. And so we can't let that kind of fearful attitude pervade our community that we all love. I'm not going to repeat all the suggestions that Andrew and others have made. I'm just going to ask you to take the courageous steps to separate us from a national hysteria of fear that does not need to pervade further into the town of Southampton. Thank you.
Okay. Lucius Ware, President of NAACP, will be followed by Tinka Topping.
Good evening, and it's my pleasure to be here, though I have some misgivings about that word pleasure. I'd like to say that some of the people know that I came here 50 years ago to be a part of the school system, having been a teacher in 3 districts and an administrator in the state of Ohio before coming. And since that time, I've worked in several school districts on Long Island and been an administrator on Long Island, school district superintendent in an urban district in New Jersey. And I still work with the kids. And what I want to say very quickly is that our students are, I'm talking about not one part, I'm talking about all of them, are suffering from the fear that they have in regards to what can happen. I spent a lot of time in the Hampton Bay schools, in the high school, and I've never seen anything like this in my many decades in schoolwork. We have a real situation on our hands. Scared kids are scared, and I mean scared. It interferes with them, it interferes with their other students around them all of the time. And this board should really get with it. There's no excuse in an intelligent community like this for these kids to be afraid that their folks are going to be gone when they wake up in the morning or whenever. I'd like to cede the rest of my time to Andrew Strong. Thank you.
We don't normally do this.
I didn't ask. I appreciate it. I don't have too much more to say. The only thing I want to communicate is that as General Counsel, I get asked all the time by people who see images of children separated, what can I do? And other than voting in November and voting, there's very little that you can actually do to reach out and make a tangible difference. What's incredible and so exciting about being here is that the people here, you can do it. You have the ability to make a meaningful difference in this community. And I'm, like I said before, I'm just
30
looking forward
seconds.
to working with you. Thanks.
All right, Tinka Topping. Nice to see you, Tinka. You'll be followed by Chris
Jay.
Worth.
Oh, okay. I have 2 things to say. One is thank you, Andrew, because I think that's the message here. You guys can do it. You can do it now. One thing that shocked me was that last week in the Southampton Press, there was an article about the police force using translation telephones and the money that was for that. It was a year and a half ago that Olaf first started to initiate that very important piece of help for people who are scared in their cars and they're brought into the cop stops them and they're panicked and they don't know what to say. This was a little piece, so simple, so concrete. All the pieces were there. A year and a half later, it hasn't happened. Maybe you know why it hasn't happened, but it's not acceptable, no longer. And that brings me to my second point, which is when I walked in here this morning, it seems like this morning, when I walked in here, there was somebody at the desk downstairs who said, "Where's your identification?" And I took it for granted for the moment, and I didn't have any because I was the passenger, and somebody who drove me did have it. But when I got up here, And somebody else said that what happens to the person who doesn't have ID when they come to this building? And you said that's not true. Everybody is able to come. And I thought,
They're supposed to be, yeah.
Okay, well, this is not acceptable either. You're the town board, and this is a guy downstairs saying, no, you can't come unless you have identification. That's scary, because that's where the slippage occurs, and where suddenly you're in what is the edge of a police state, and we're not there. I mean, I know that everybody here thinks that you're going to help, and you've got to now. It's almost at the edge. It's almost too late. You've got to now. Thank you.
Okay,
You're going to do it.
All right. You're Chris?
That's me.
This is the last card I have. So. All right.
My name is Chris Worth. I'm a resident of East Quogue. I'm an immigration attorney in East Quogue. I'm in immigration court, not nearly as much as Judge Burr, but a fair bit. I want to second the comments of Judge Burr and the comments of Andrew Strong, and all of the heart-wrenching tales that you've heard tonight. I hear every day, so all I can say is that they're true. And that my clients and their families suffer a great deal. But just in terms of I actually don't want to speak tonight as an immigration attorney, but more just as a taxpayer. You've heard about the legal liability that attaches when there's arrests made without probable cause that a crime has been committed. And it's significant. I'm not sure if the document has been submitted, but there's an ACLU flyer that lists somewhere around 10 civil suits against various municipalities over the course of the last 2 years. And I'm just going to read off the dollar amounts of the liability to the municipality. County of Los Angeles, $255,000. This looks like Arizona municipality, $30,000. Spokane, City of Spokane in Washington, $49,000. Excuse me. Sacramento County, $25,000. North Police Department in Pennsylvania, $25,000. And a county in Oregon, $97,000. So even if forgetting all of the heart-wrenching, horrible things that are happening to our neighbors, as a taxpayer, I don't want to have to pay for really what is police overreaching. And so I think that legislation is something that will protect
30 seconds.
me as a taxpayer, selfishly, and really more importantly, all of our neighbors from being arrested and handed into ICE detention, where by the time they call my office, they may or they may not be reunited with their families, which is it's a pretty big burden. So thank you for listening to all of these comments.
Thank you. All right. That's all the cards I have. We are still in public portion. Is there anyone who did not fill out a card, who has not spoken, who wishes to be heard? Sir? You should say father.
Only one word. Thank you very much for all your interest, for your concern with this situation of our people, of Latino communities. Thank you very much. I see and I appreciate how you all are sensible, are concerned with this situation. I encourage you, all these specific points that we have brought together here tonight, shelter, documents. All these questions, please, let us make together better for our people. Thank you very much.
We're gonna, just for our records, we're gonna need your name, so.
Okay, yes. Jesus, like Jesus, Jesus Arellano. Arellano.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else who has not spoken, who wishes to be heard? Come forward.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
So my name is Tammy Coffey. I am the community liaison and the advocate for the Bridgehampton Child Care Recreational Center. I am also on the Anti-Bias Task Force as well as NAACP. My passion are the youth. I work diligently with the youth, and so throughout my advocating, I advocate for the youth. These are two young ladies that are part of the program that I work with. And my reason for coming up here is that I deal with youth, different nationalities. And I am clearly aware when I used to sit down and talk to my mother and my grandmother and different generations of the degradation that my generation have dealt with and had to go through and deal with, and the killing, the lynching, the running away from slavery, and so on and so forth. So I say that to say is that a lot of people take negative things for granted when parents are being separated from their children and things of that nature. I met Ola a little while ago, and we talked about the different situations and the different scenarios, and I could really relate to what was going on because I've heard those stories and I know how hard it was. But when I'm working with the youth, and you get one of the youth or two of the youth or even five of the youth who are very quiet and they're not speaking and you don't understand what's going on. You want to try and figure out the root of the problem. And then when you find out that they're not talking because they're in fear, they live in fear because they don't know if when they go home their parent is going to be in their living room and they are their security. That's something really hard to deal with. So when I'm faced with something like that, I have to ask myself, what can I do? So I had no other choice but to stand up here and to talk about this.
30 seconds.
I'm going to give a testimony because, I was in a car accident quite a few years ago. And a drunk driver, a Caucasian man, he hit my car head on. My car flipped over. It wasn't a black man. It wasn't a white man. It wasn't an Asian man. It was 4 Latinos who came and pulled me out of that car and made sure that I was safe. We are all human beings, and we have to love each other for who we are. We can't feel like we are less than because we are of another nationality. That doesn't work. And so when I know this gentleman who, he says his girlfriend, he had a daughter, she's 7 years old. He had to make the choice to allow his child to go back because his girlfriend was deported. And that's a hard thing to have to deal with. So, there are so many different situations and different scenarios that we are dealing with. So I'm appealing to you to listen to the different people who came up here and stood before you and talked about changing legislation and making different decisions. Sometimes we have to go against the grain, because when we go against the grain, a lot of the times we make the right decisions. They may not be favorable decisions, but they are the right decisions. So I'm asking that you will take that into consideration and just talk things out and come together with everyone and just try and find a solution to this problem. And with that, thank you for allowing me to get up here to speak.
Thank you.
Anyone else who has not spoken who wishes to be heard?
Very brief, I'm going to round it up. My name is Kathy Werner.
Have you already spoken in the
Yes, I
public
have.
portion on this same subject? No.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Yeah, it was my sister.
Okay.
I just want to share that I wasn't even going to come to this board meeting tonight, and I'm very glad I did. It filled me with a lot of hope at a time when the world is just filled with so much anger and sadness and hopelessness, really. To hear everybody share their stories, I used a lot of tissues. I've been feeling very down about our country. A lot of times I'm ashamed to be an American. I used to always say, I'm so proud to be an American. You know, I drive around singing that song, you know, proud to be an American. And I went to that forum at Suffolk County Community College last week. Mr. Bouvier was there, and he kind of snuck his way in with his little attitude. But I was one of the people stuck outside. I was ashamed. I felt really sad, embarrassed almost, that as an American I was in a place where politicians chose, not you, a certain selected few were allowed in there. You know, the law enforcement were allowed in there, ICE was allowed in there, but we were, we were all encouraged, to go to the meeting, to be there by 9, to go in, to sit in the front so that we could share. But my sister and I showed up a little late, so we were not informed that this open meeting was closed, so we stood outside. And all of us started talking, and as the students got out of their classroom, they started sharing, and they were upset that as students, they weren't allowed in. And it made me very sad to be an American. But this tonight being here gave me hope. And I wanted to share that I am a member of the Anti-Bias Task Force. I'm not here representing them. But one day in a meeting, we were sharing that as human beings, we each have our little bit of biases. And to be aware of that, as a human being, to acknowledge that, but to accept each other with all our little differences and to love each other. That's what makes a community. And I live in the town of Southampton. I love it. And I would like the town of Southampton to be the strongest town to embrace everybody from every country, no matter where they come from, and to have a town board work together for, it doesn't matter if you're a friggin' citizen or not. I didn't choose to be born here. It just so happens that one of my ancestors, whatever, I don't know how they got here. But I am proud of the town board. I remember Jay dancing at one of the picnics we had at Red Creek Park. John always goes there, probably for the free food, But let's make this a great town.
Have a great time.
For everybody. For everybody.
All right, one more time. Is there anyone who has not spoken who wishes to be heard? That's all right. It's why we're here.
My name is Grania Brolin. I live in Watermill. And I couldn't agree more with the feeling of hope. But there was a much larger meeting, much larger, in the other room, the bigger room downstairs, about 1.5 years ago, as somebody mentioned. There were at least 200 people. One point, a doctor stood up who talked about the mental health problems of the children. She works in schools, who were frightened, who wouldn't leave their mothers, who wouldn't let the mothers go to the bathroom or whatever. And the town board at that time listened sagely and nicely and politely, and that was 18 months ago. This is a much smaller gathering, but I bet if somebody takes the time to look back at the minutes from that public meeting, there isn't a new thing that's been said. Therefore, I was thinking, why not? Well, you can't write us all a letter to apologize or to justify, but I think we're the squeaky wheel. It wasn't enough, the 200 the last time, but we've been maybe louder, and so squeakier, and the squeaky wheel gets results. So you can use that as your excuse to pay attention to us more than you had. Thank you.
Any other squeaky wheels? Anyone else who wants to be heard? All right. I'm going to make a motion to close public portion.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for your comments.
Thank you for being here.
We have a lot more business. Why don't we take about 20 seconds? Those who want to stay can, but if you can exit as quietly as possible and orderly as possible, and then we'll get right on with other business. Can you pass it to the clerk? Sure. All right, so, or while everybody is exiting, I'm sorry, could people exit as quietly as possible so we can continue with our town board meeting? Can everybody turn to their walk-on packet for a moment? 'Cause I'd like to add a couple resolutions to our agenda. So you have a walk-on packet. It has 6 resolutions. There's no need to add the third one there because we have recessed the public hearing.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing you.
Okay.
Sorry, Jay.
All right.
As soon as they shut the door, I think we'll probably be okay.
If you could allow that door to close behind you.
Thank you.
All right, I think it's quiet enough.
Okay. I'm sorry, now what did you say?
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to add 5 resolutions to our packet. So can we get that door closed in the back? Thank you. Okay, so the first is 30186.
I'm sorry, could you just shut that door, please? Thank you.
Okay, so 30186 is authorization of cost reimbursement waiver and road closures for the Flanders Fire Department 70th Anniversary Parade on September 29th of 2018 from 2 to 4 p.m. Then we have 30188 is a notice of public hearing on acquisitions of lands of Bodian, West Hampton Beach, and amends the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. The third will be 30197. It's a stipulation of settlement. The fourth will be 30198. It's a warrant number 18. And the fifth, the 30199, is to authorize the town board to retain outside counsel as it relates to Rose Hill Road in Watermill, New York. I'll make a motion to walk those 5 resolutions on.
Second that.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Okay, so now those are part of our agenda, and I know people have waited quite a bit, so I'm happy to take the resolution, Mr. Maron, out of order, so that you don't have to wait to the end of our agenda. And so I will make a motion to take Resolution 30199, authorizing the town board to retain outside counsel as it relates to Rose Hill Road and Watermill, out of order. Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. Was it?
It was,
Oh, it's Councilwoman Lofstad?
Julie was louder.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and that's to take it now. That's not a vote on it yet. Okay, so it is now before us. And I will make a motion to, at least for the purposes of discussion, I'll make a motion to approve a 30199, authorizing the town board to retain outside counsel as it relates to Rose Hill Road in Watermill, New York. Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. Okay, so on the motion, this is the property that was mentioned in public portion. This is a property that we have transferred to the Southampton Town trustees. The Southampton Town trustees have allowed a license agreement with the neighbor to use about a third of it for exclusive use as a driveway entrance to that property. There's been quite a bit of testimony at the trustees meeting. Some of you may have gone to it. A lot of concern, questions about whether that was a lawful use of a property that may in fact be parkland and therefore would have required an alienation by New York State to do so. I have, looked through the record as best I can. We now have some information perhaps we did not have when we transferred this property to the trustees, in that the original resolution to acquire this property did call for its use for public use, public access to the water. In an effort to try to resolve some of the issues between the trustees and the neighbors in the town, which is no longer owning this property, I think we need to know whether this is parkland or not. I had reached out to the New York State Controller and the New York State Office of Parks to see if we could get a formal opinion. I've been notified by phone that they do not issue opinions, and they will not issue an opinion on this. Perhaps the only, and even if we got one, it would not be definitive. The only way to get a definitive opinion would be to, I guess, Jim, was it through a declaratory judgment or an action in front of a judge. It does potentially put us at odds a little bit with the trustees. I think they are trying to figure this out themselves, and they're not sure perhaps that everything that they did was, they have this new information too. So, Jim, did you want to say anything more? This resolution will authorize us to hire counsel. It doesn't necessarily commence an action.
Right. And we're still in kind of the review stage. I've been working with this firm, Tillman, John Wagner, who's one of the partners at the firm. I've had discussions with John, and we're going to explore, the best option for the town, and that's what, if it's litigation, I will keep the board informed of every procedure that we do here. And we're working also with the neighbors, the Watermill Residents Council. Been working with her also, and so we're trying to see the best situation possible here for the town and the residents of the town.
If we decide to commence an action, will it come back before this board, or would this attorney then have the right to file?
Yeah, I would.
Without coming back to us?
I would expect that we could proceed if the board would prefer to have another resolution authorizing the litigation, but I would
Not
expect that
necessarily.
this resolution would empower us.
We would then have an executive session with the attorney, and then
Yes.
we would decide what the
Yes,
proper action.
if we decide to take the litigation, which I would certainly review any, the papers, the complaint or whatever that we do here, that I'd also keep everybody informed about what we possibly would do here.
Okay, is there any other discussion on this?
Not discussion, just that protection of our natural resource and access to our natural resources, I think is one of the more important duties of the town. So I certainly support doing this.
Right.
Right. Yeah. All right, so motion was made, there was a second. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, abstentions? Okay, so all are in favor. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so let's, Anyone else who's been waiting? April, are you here for a particular resolution?
Cinema.
Oh, sure. The Sag Harbor Cinema. That would be, that's a notice for public hearing, right?
I don't know what page it is. Right here.
Page 40.
Okay, so.
40?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
at the bottom of the page.
Okay, so, Resolution 942, I'll make a motion to take this out of order. This is a notice of public hearing on the acquisition of a restrictive use easement and historic preservation easement on property located at 90 Main Street, Sag Harbor, and amends the CPF project plan and management and stewardship plan to include that property. This is the Sag Harbor Cinema, and this would be just for a public hearing that would then authorize the town by separate resolution then to acquire certain commercial rights on this property and facade easements and affordability, a host of different things. So I will make a motion to take that out of order.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And this is also co-sponsored, I should say, by Councilman Schiavone. So now that it's been taken out of order, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 942.
We just need to make an amendment and.
Oh, I'm sorry, so there is an amendment, so it's,
Move to amend.
all right, so there's one tiny amendment, it looks like, located in, it says the Sag Harbor District, it's meant to say the Sag Harbor Historic District. This is in the second whereas clause, just to insert the word historic between harbor and district. So let me make a motion to amend 942 to insert the word historic between harbor and district in the second whereas clause.
Second.
Seconded by, I'm sorry, Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So amended. Okay, now I will make a motion to approve the amended resolution. Tommy John, would you like to second it?
Second.
Seconded by the co-sponsor, Councilman Schiavone. Any discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that is approved. Let me just state the date that this public hearing will occur. This hearing will occur on Tuesday, October 23rd, in this room at 6 p.m. Okay? So it is scheduled. Oh, thank you, April. Yeah. Thank you for all the work you've been doing for the cinema and for so many other causes.
Thanks, April.
Resolution 901 of 2018 is 2018 Flanders Riverside Northampton Community Association Hamlet Services Challenge Grant.
Second.
Seconded by one of the co-sponsors there. Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2018-902 to authorize the purchase and installation of fencing from Suffolk County contract with residential fences.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 903 of 18 authorizes the purchase and installation of new electrical service from Suffolk County contract with All Service Electric, Inc. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 904, authorize the supervisor to sign contract extension with G&M DEDGE, Inc. for vehicle fuel management system maintenance and installation.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 905 of 18, authorize the supervisor to sign contract extensions for private and municipal markets for the disposal and recycling of services.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 906 of 2018 authorizes the supervisor to execute 2018 summer instructor contracts for parks programs. Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 218-907 to authorize the supervisor to execute an amendment to contract with the Rayner Group PE and LSB LLC for land surveying, mapping, and engineering services to be provided for Meadowlark Lane road improvements in Bridgehampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 908 of 2018 authorizes the supervisor to sign a contract with L.K. McLean Associates, P.C. for professional services to be provided for hot dog ocean facility rehabilitation, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier.
And I'll second that.
All right, seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 909 of 2018 authorizes the supervisor to sign a contract with L.K. McLean Associates, P.C. for professional services to be provided for Ponquag Beach redevelopment of the beach pavilion.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 910 of 18, awards and authorizes supervisor to sign a contract with Fisher Signs and Shirts to provide various signs to the town.
Second.
Seconded by
Scavone.
Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 911 of 2018 awards and authorizes the supervisor to sign a contract for hot dog ocean facility rehabilitation with JNS Contracting.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 912 of 2018 awards and authorizes the supervisor to sign contracts for Ponquag Beach redevelopment of the beach pavilion with construction consultants for the general construction, New York trenchless for the electric, and plumb well services for the plumbing portion of the Ponquag Beach redevelopment of the beach pavilion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 913 of 2018 recalls and rescinds Town Board Resolution 2018-767 to sign a contract with Suffolk County Water Authority to connect to public water at Poxabog Golf Course.
I'll second that as well. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Town Board Resolution 2018-914, to rescind the Town Board Resolution 2018-769, authorizing the purchase of a 2018 Ford F-150 from Great Neck Ford, LLC, CBA Tower Ford.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 915 of 18 rescinds Town Board Resolution 2018-785, authorizing the purchase of a 2018 Ford F-150 from Webster Ford, Inc.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 916 of 18, resolution authorizing the purchase of a 2019 Ford F-150.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 917, resolution authorizing the purchase of a 2019 Ford F-150 for the Community Preservation Department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
918 of 2018 authorizes the supervisor to sign a donation agreement with Boy Scout Troop 483 for an open-air shelter structure at Squire Town Park, and we thank Aiden Martin for undertaking that. Second.
Okay, seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2018-919. This is the 2018 notice to bidders for demolition at 18 South Crestview Drive, Remsenburg.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 920 of 18 amends the 2018 adopted capital budget for the Ponquag bathing facility.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 921 of 18 is bond authorization for the Ponquag bathing facility. I'll need a roll call. Somebody?
Supervisor Schneiderman,
Yes?
Councilwoman Lofstad.
Yes.
Councilwoman Scalera,
Yes.
Councilman Bouvier,
Yes.
Councilman Scavone.
Who seconded
Yes.
that?
I
get a
didn't have a
second?
second. I need a second. So,
Second.
Seconds are good, yes.
seconded by Councilman Bouvier. Do I need to recall?
No.
Why not? Let's just do it
It
over.
was all yeses.
It was all yes.
All right?
Supervisor Schneiderman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Lofstad,
Yes.
Councilwoman Scalera,
Yes.
Councilman Bouvier,
Yes.
Councilman Scavone.
Aye.
We're good. All clear.
All right. 922 of 18 amends the 2018 adopted budget for various departments.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye.
approve. 923 of 18 amends the 2018 adopted capital budget for Hot Dog Beach.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 924 amends the 2018 capital budget for CPF Hot Dog Beach access ramp.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 218-925 to authorize budget modification to the Community Development Block Grant Program for fiscal years 2017.
Second.
It's co-sponsored with Councilwoman Lofstad.
All right, so we'll take the second from
Is that
Councilman Lofstad.
is that a typo for fiscal years 2017, singular?
Where are you?
Can I make that amendment on the floor then?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of
just the
Scribner's kind of thing, so we'll just take out the yes from here.
Thank you.
So I think Councilwoman Lofstad was the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2018-926, appoint Trails Advisory Board for 2018.
Second.
Fast second there. So,
Yeah.
In a second.
it was, yeah, less than a millisecond, I think. All right, seconded by Councilwoman Scalera, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2018-927 to recall and rescind Resolution 2018-875, accepting the resignation of members from the Southampton Arts and Cultural Committee.
I will second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 928 of 18 authorizes the town attorney to reimburse NYMER the deductible for a claim paid on behalf of the town.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 929 accepts the donation of interpretive signage from the Hampton Bays Rotary Club for the Edward J. Warner Sr. Old Ponquag Bridge Marine Park.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 930 of 18 authorizes Community Preservation Fund tax refund pursuant to the first-time homebuyers exemption for Tatiana Fros and Rogerio Frosilva.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 931, co-sponsored with the supervisor, waives a portion of the showmobile fees for the San Gennaro Feast of the Hamptons.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2018-932. This is the 2018 Manufactured Home Community License.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 933, sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, Councilwoman Lofstad, and Councilman Scavone, abolishes civil service position.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councilman
This was the cleanup one.
Scavone.
That was the only thing.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain for this one.
One.
It is approved.
933.
Okay.
That was 933. 934 accepts resignation of John Charlton, Office Application Specialist.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Confused as to which one you abstained from.
Was
Abstain from
930.
933.
933.
You abstained from, okay.
935 accepts resignation of Michael Banglavidi, construction equipment operator.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 936 of 18 accepts retirement of James McGooey, assessment aide in assessor's office.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and we all wish Mr. McGooey, if I'm saying that correct, an excellent retirement, and thank him for his service to the town of Southampton. 937 of 18 authorizes GIS manager to attend the New York State Geospatial 2018 Summit.
Second.
Seconded by, was that Councilwoman Scalera? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 938 of 18 authorizes Town Management Services Administrator to attend the Association of Governmental Risk Pools, AGRIP, Fall Education Forum.
Second.
And you can't go swimming in a risk pool. So
No, you can't.
so it's
No,
not a
risk.
not a pleasure trip. So seconded, seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 939 of 18 terminates the employment of a certain auto mechanic 2.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 940 of 18 is a notice of public hearing to consider amending Town Code Section 10-5 as it relates to the procedure for capital program amendments.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved.
Town Board Resolution 218-941, notice of public hearing to consider Community Preservation Fund CPF water quality improvement projects proposed for Round 1 2018 funding. So this
Second.
will-
I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Who's that
This is
second?
just the
Yes.
first group of
Speedy Scalera.
projects.
I didn't have coffee or anything.
You were moving
Yeah,
so
what's-
slow.
what's going on?
And then all of a
No,
sudden-
no, you-
You're back on 2
That was
feet.
second.
You're back in action.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a second by Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
42 you did.
This was taken out of
We
order.
took 942 out of order. All right, 943 of 18, assume lead agency for the purpose of SECRA, a review for the change of zone application entitled 5 Cedar Lane LLC requesting a change from residential R40 to Hamlet Commercial Residential HC in Noyak. That's the Cromer's Market property, or I guess the property adjacent to it. huh? Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 944 of 18, reestablish lead agency for preparation of a supplemental generic environmental impact statement for the Hampton Bays Downtown Overlay District, Hampton Bays.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. I didn't realize we lost lead agency status.
That's it. We're on.
Okay, so now to the walk-on packet, and we've taken the last one already, so we have 4 remaining. 30186, authorization of cost reimbursement waiver and road closures for the Flanders Fire Department 70th Anniversary Parade on September 29th, 2018, from 2 to 4 p.m.
Second. You can have Jim, let John do it. Let John do it.
All right, seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
approved. So that is September 29th, and the road will be closed. They've already posted it.
It has
There's a lot of
signs
They got all
signage.
this- They actually looks
So,
well done.
But come out and join the parade, or at least watch the parade.
Watch.
30188, notice of public hearing on the acquisition of lands of Bodian, West Hampton Beach, and amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include properties.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 30197, just give me a second.
Second.
I'm ready for the second. I actually need a second. Okay. So 30197, it's a stipulation of settlement with the town and the Civil Service Employees Association.
Did John second it?
John, you're seconded. Was that a second?
That was.
All right, seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. And the last resolution of the evening, doc ID 30198, warrant number 18, capital number 18, CPF number 18, and payroll liability.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. All right, that concludes our agenda. Is there any other business? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.